All right, so what we see on the next page is just a summary of the example that we just did for example 2, where we found our regression line equation. This just shows our StatCrunch results. Again, notice it shows our dependent variable, our independent variable. Here, we're looking for our equation. Right? So this equation is that we just calculated. Again, ours is slightly different because we rounded ours off on the previous page. But if we compare that to what we have here, we see that our regression line equation of, this all in here, negative 442.856, excuse me, plus 9.029 times our height is pretty close to what we get here. Again, our y-intercept is slightly different just because of the fact that we did this calculation by hand instead of using the computer. But so as you're kind of going through and working through the problems, again, remember that you can use StatCrunch to do these. StatCrunch is your friend. It's going to give you nice exact values. The other nice thing is, if we're using StatCrunch, we can go ahead and make some kind of simple comparisons without having to do a lot of work. So far in all of these, we've used height as our x and then weight as our y. Right? But what would happen if we switched these? So in this example here, we're going to switch our independent and our dependent variable. So now we're going to let weight be our x and height be our y. Right? Notice that we've just flip-flopped these values from the previous page. But notice that when we look at our results from StatCrunch, what we get here does cause a much different linear equation. Right? So this 52.397 plus 0.086 times our weight is very, very different than we have as our answer in the top of this section. Our correlation coefficient, right, does not change. So our correlation coefficient of 0.881 doesn't change, as we saw in the last chapter. So we're going to make a little note here that switching variables may not change the correlation coefficient. Which is R, right? But switching variables will change the regression line equation. Right. So it may not change our correlation coefficient, but switching variables will change our regression line equation. So that means when you're entering things in StatCrunch and you're working through calculations and you're answering different questions, again, you definitely need to be consciously aware of reading your questions, reading your problems very carefully, making sure that you're choosing the independent and dependent variable correctly as we're going through and thinking about our regression lines.